Do you ever feel like the Social Security COLA is just a massive failure? And here's what I mean by that. It's never enough. Your benefits are always falling behind. Your benefits are not keeping up with real price increases. Price increases are always outpacing real inflation. They take it all away because of the Medicare Part B premium increase. Your SNAP benefits are reduced as a result of the COLA. And the list goes on and on. I could sit here all day and rattle off all kinds of different reasons why we love the COLA, but at the same time, we kind of hate the COLA. You know what I mean by that? So anyway, I want to talk about it here in this video because the COLA actually assumes a lot of different things about beneficiaries, and I can tell you this much, beneficiaries living in some regions around the country are experiencing very, very different things, but yet the COLA is basically just like a big blanket statement, just basically identifying everybody as one and the same. It doesn't really work that way, and I want to talk about it here in the video. So with that being said, let's get into it and talk about the COLA for Social Security. However, can I ask a huge favor of you? Please make sure to like the video with the big thumbs up button right down below. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your support. Also, if you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe to the channel as well with the big subscribe button right down below. I'm here for you every single day with videos like this, helping you out in any way that I possibly can, doing all the research, watching the updates, pointing out anything you can possibly grab or take advantage of. I have about 5,000 videos here on the channel because I'm here for you multiple times a day, 7 days a week, have been for years, and I have no plans on going anywhere. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you, and let's talk about it. All right, so the Social Security COLA. Obviously, it's for 2025. Most recently the announcement here. Tiny. I mean, here's the thing. It's not great. It's better than zero. Don't get me wrong. Zero is definitely an option, but do you feel a little bit disappointed, like a little bit stiffed, a little, I don't know, feeling like you got taken advantage of here? Yeah, it's the same feeling we mostly get every single year. Even last year when we got an 8.7%, right? Remember back in, in 2023, we got 8.7%, but in late 2022, we got the announcement, hey, you're getting 8.7%. I can't tell you how many comments I saw down below saying, wow, 8.7, it should really be double. It should be triple. It should be more than that because we just paid, whatever percent in inflation on all of these different things, right? We got hosed for a whole year, and now we're getting a little 8.7. That was last year, by the way. This year, obviously, 2024, we got 3.2, and now we're not getting much more than that, right? I mean, well, I shouldn't say more than that. We're not getting much more than zero, a little over 2%, not great for 2025, right? So it's not that great, but I see this down below, and I've seen it tons of times here as of recently, comments coming in saying, oh, yep, won't be able to pay my bills again this year, or, my benefits only going up, X dollars, or whatever the situation is. A lot of people feeling, very frustrated with the situation. However, let me point out a couple things really quickly about the COLA. Remember, the COLA is all-encompassing. It's all fixed income beneficiaries. Well, I shouldn't say all, but basically everybody that receives a benefit from Social Security, retirement, disability, SSDI, survivors, spousal, SSI, and even VA beneficiaries. Well over 70 million people, they get this COLA raise every single year that's announced by Social Security, okay? But here's the situation. What I mean by all-encompassing is that it assumes a lot of things, okay? It assumes, number one, that all of us are spending our money on the exact same things. I'm sorry, but I don't think you and me are spending our money on the same things. I'm just saying, you and your neighbor are not spending money on the same things. You and your spouse, or you and your siblings, or whatever, you get my point here. All of us are spending money on very, very different things. Our needs are different. Our appetites are different, right? When we go to the grocery store, we're not buying the same basket of goods. Not a chance. That's probably very, very, very unlikely. It's just not happening. My point is, we're also spending our money in different proportions. We might be spending more or less on housing. We might be spending more or less on food and shelter and utilities and healthcare costs and medical and dental and vision and glasses. You get my point, right? We're all spending our money in different ways on different products and services, and we're also spending our money in different proportions. However, the COLA basically assumes that we're all spending our money in the exact same way, on the exact same thing, in the exact same proportions. False. That is not true, not even close to true, okay? So that's one big major assumption about the COLA that is not even anywhere close to reality. It also assumes something else. We all are experiencing the exact same inflation. Again, false. That is not true whatsoever. Now here's the thing. We know this much. Inflation in different regions around the country are very, very different. For example, Coastal states, coastal regions, right? Whether you're on the East Coast, the West Coast, down, southern states and cities, things like that, generally, coastal areas have higher inflation. Why? It's more desirable. A lot of people want to be right by the water, right by the beach, right by the ocean, right? So it's more desirable. In other words, housing is typically more expensive. When more people desire a certain thing, if housing's more expensive, that probably means that food prices are probably more expensive as well. Why? More demand for those food products in those certain areas. Utilities are probably more expensive. Why? Same thing, more demand, right? Whereas if you're living maybe, and again, nothing wrong with this whatsoever. I'm a huge fan of small towns, okay? My point is, let's just say that you're living in a small town, kind of in the middle of the country, and you're kind of surrounded by cornfields. Is your inflation there just as much as maybe like a coastal area? Probably not quite as much. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that it is or isn't. I'm just saying in general, it may not be as much. Now, let's look at a place like, I don't know, New York, New Jersey, San Francisco, Los Angeles, things like this. And again, just some big cities I'm throwing out there. Do you think that they're maybe experiencing higher inflation overall compared to other areas around the country? Mostly they are. Why? Again, they're desirable, big cities, big corporations, a lot of jobs, demand to be there. Prices are typically driven higher in those big metropolitan areas like that, right? So the point is, you kind of get my point here. And again, I'm just kind of making up examples here, okay? And I'm not trying to say like big towns are good, big cities are good, small towns are, good. I'm not saying anything good or bad about anything. I'm just saying, just giving you some examples. But the COLA assumes that we're all experiencing the same inflation. That is not even anywhere close to the truth, right? Some people across the country may be experiencing significantly higher inflation than what they're actually presenting with the COLA. Because remember, the COLA is an overall big, broad picture of basically inflation over the entire country for basically the previous month or a set period of time. Does that kind of make sense? So it's looking at a big, broad picture of the overall averaged inflation over the course of the entire country for an entire month's time. It's not a very good barometer, but it depends on what you're looking at. That's just kind of how it's determined. Does that kind of make sense? So it assumes a lot of things, and that being included. We're all spending our money on the same things in the same ways, the same proportions, and we're also experiencing the same inflation, which is not even anywhere close to the truth. So that's kind of the major downfall with a lot of this inflation is that, or what I should say is these COLAs, is that a lot of these assumptions are not even anywhere accurate. Therefore, somebody who has actually been experiencing, say, I don't know, 3.5%, 4%, 4.5%, 5% inflation, which a lot of people probably have been realistically over the last 12 months or even the last 6 months, realistically have been really experiencing this across the country. Unfortunately, with this little tiny COLA, a little over 2% here, as a result of that, now we're basically behind yet again, another 1, 2, 3% yet again, because we've used this kind of out of date calculation and method in which they use to determine the COLA, which is the CPIW, Consumer Price Index for Urban Wage Earners and Clerical Workers, which again doesn't even reflect anything about fixed income beneficiaries. Does that statement reflect anything about a fixed income beneficiary? Let me say it again. Consumer Price Index for Urban Wage Earners and Clerical Workers. Does that sound like Social Security retiree or Social Security disability beneficiary? I didn't see anything like that in the CPIW definition. Maybe you did. I certainly didn't notice anything about that. So again, it's even the wrong metric that they're using to determine this inflation and what the COLA will actually be for the fixed income beneficiary, which, by the way, there are some lawmakers and multiple pieces of legislation out there that want to change it from the CPIW to the CPIE, Consumer Price Index for the Elderly. Now, does that check a box for fixed income beneficiaries? Yeah, it's certainly way more close than the CPIW, and that definition I gave you just a minute ago. But at the same time, the CPIE is also not even that great of a reflection of what inflation is actually doing for these individuals. Now, let me throw it there really quickly. Maybe 6 months ago or so, I'm going to give or take a little bit, I came out with a video and I said, hey, I have a much better plan for this whole COLA situation. And I'm going to say this much. They would never, ever, ever do this, but this is just kind of my idea. Number one, it's kind of like a multi-part series plan, but basically what they do is they adjust the COLA or they adjust benefits quarterly. So every 3 months, 4 times a year, you're getting your benefits adjusted based on most recent inflation data from the previous quarter. So inflation is up 1.2% over this previous quarter. Boom, you get a 1.2% raise going into the following quarter. Not bad, right? Let's just say that inflation eases and it's up only 0.2% for the following quarter. Okay, you get a 0.2% raise for the following quarter. Not bad. Let's just say that inflation goes down by 1%. Okay, your benefits stay flat for the following quarter until the next reading, the next quarter, 3 months later, right? So that's one way that we could keep up with inflation rather than waiting a whole year. That's another big problem with the COLA as well. It's so delayed. We have to live for an entire year, we have to live for an entire year, okay? For an entire year, we got to live through all of the inflation, and then they say, oh, you experienced all this inflation. Now we'll give you a little raise, not today, but in 3 months when we turn over to the new year. Then we'll give you a little raise, right? So it's always very, very, very delayed. You got to pay first. You got to pay for a whole year, and then you get a teeny tiny raise on your benefit. It's very much delayed. Does that kind of make sense? So again, another major flaw about this. But another thing too as well, if it were up to me, not only would I do the quarterly COLA adjustments, but I would also say this much. Figure it out regionally. So like, I don't know if they would determine it by state, by county, probably not by city. That's very micro. But maybe by county. Even county would honestly be pretty micro as well. But maybe on a state by state level. In general, most states probably experience relatively similar inflation across the board on a state by state basis. But maybe they determine the COLA for each individual state. For example, California. You have your own dedicated COLA because, your inflation is X. Meanwhile, Missouri and Kentucky and Tennessee and Florida and Georgia, all of these states, and again, every state out there, I'm just naming off some random states, just some names. But maybe they determine, hey, in Georgia this year, we experienced 3.1% inflation. Okay, let's do, every beneficiary that has resided in Georgia, they get a 3.1. But then the problem with this situation then too is, again, just want to throw this out there to be 100% fair. Let's just say that somebody in, Illinois, right? Or Illinois experiences, say, 1.2% inflation. Meanwhile, Georgia experiences 3.1%. I would think that people in Illinois would be like, but wait, Georgia got 3.1%. Why are we getting 1.8? You see what I point here? So there would be this little bit of a situation where, there'd probably be a little bit of animosity, across the country. You're like, hey, they got that much. We only got this much. We have way more inflation than they do. So that's kind of one of the problems. But, it better reflect the actual inflation for the region that we're in. Because, like I said, some regions around the country have way more inflation than others. But yet we're all getting the same COLA regardless of where you're located, right? I mean, you could be living out in the woods in a little shack, which would be awesome. Be really cool about right now. Don't get me wrong. Love to do that. Versus living in a big city and we're all getting the same COLA. Does that make sense? Somebody living in a small shack out in the woods, super cool, but they're probably not dealing with nearly as much inflation as somebody living in a big city. Make sense about that, right? So, but either way, the COLAs on a quarterly basis is, in my opinion, a much better approach because now we're being proactive and we're adjusting benefits quarterly. That's easy to say, right? Quarterly. Yeah. So anyway, that's one simple adjustment that I would think could really give a lot of equity back to beneficiaries in a pretty good way. And again, your benefits are being adjusted quickly, adjusting to and kind of making those necessary steps to adjust to the inflation. Rather than waiting all that time, waiting a year and then saying, oh yeah, we'll adjust your benefit by X because of the last 12 months inflation. Doesn't make any sense. Not to me anyway. But anyway, just want to talk about this really quickly. So I hope this helps you to some degree, or at least kind of gives you a better perspective to look at this stuff. But if you've been writing comments down below in the comment section about how you're disappointed and you feel neglected and you feel like they've taken advantage of us, hey, I see you there. Okay, I see your comments. I see all the comments down below. I see the concerns. I see all that. I just want to let you know I'm hearing you. I'm here for you. Unfortunately, I don't have a say in this. Just wanted to talk through it though really quickly. So anyway, hope this helps you to some degree. Again, thank you so much for joining. Please like the video down below. Thumbs up button. Thank you so much. Subscribe down below as well. Big subscribe button. Totally free to do so. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I will continue to be here for you every single day. That's my promise and my dedication. And as always, I'm sticking to it. Otherwise, check out the other videos here on the channel. The 5,000 videos in the video library. The ones I've hand selected for you down below in the description at the top of the comment section. And right now showing up on your screen as well. You'll see some videos there. Thank you so much. Check out one of those. And I'll see you again a little bit later in the